Hello, and thanks for joining us on Daily Politics. This is a platform that engages topical issues in Nigeria's polity. My name is Shafiu Suleiman. And on the platform today, we're looking at the subsidy removal debacle, so to speak. The proposal by the Nigerian government to totally remove subsidy of petroleum product has been generating a lot of reactions from Nigerians. The conversation around the impact it will have on the common people. The Nigerian government, through the Ministry of Finance, because the Minister of Finance was actually the first, that dropped the hint, and then that was, backed by also the comments made by the Group Managing Director of the NNPC, Mele Kari, that Nigerian government has resolved, for the first time and holistically to get rid of what they call subsidy on petroleum product. It has been an existential issue anyway, because subsequent governments have also had a running battle, trying to remove the subsidy. But the proponents of the subsidy removal this time around happen to be those at the trenches, the build up to the 2015 election, sometimes in 2012 or thereabout, kicking against the removal of subsidy. At that point, they say it is anti-people. And today, what changed between 2012 and today is what we're going to be looking at. In the first place, is there anything called subsidy in Nigeria? Because there has been also concerns with regards to the existence or otherwise of the subsidy. At some point, some say it's a scam, including the president, who said, he doesn't believe there is even a subsidy in the first place. At some point, some say a few cabal in the industry are the ones benefiting from this subsidy. Well, so much has passed, between that time and now. And today, perhaps triggered by the recommendations of the World Bank and the IMF, the Nigerian government is, negative, in trying to, heed to these calls and then remove subsidy totally, so that they can save the economy, as they say. It's part of the recommendations made by the World Bank recently. Now, whether this is going to be realistic and how it's going to affect the ordinary people, should there be any debate around subsidy in the first place? Why should Nigeria be talking about subsidy if it has the capacity to refine petroleum product? What are the imperatives? These are some of the issues we'll be looking at on Daily Politics today. And I have in the studio distinguished gentlemen who together will be looking at the issues. I have Professor Usman Yusuf, the former Executive Secretary of the National Health Insurance Scheme, NHIS. Is a professor of hematology and bone marrow plantation as well. He is a policy analyst. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Also joining us for the discussion is a one-time presidential candidate, 2019 to be precise, of the People's Trust Party, the PT, Mr. Benga Olaopo Hashim. He's also a policy analyst, now an ABC chieftain, because he has also decammed from the PT to the All Progressives Congress, the APC. So together we'll be looking at these issues very closely. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Benga.
It's a pleasure to have me here. Thank you.
Right. But before we continue with the conversation, it's about time we introduce to you a round of politics in Nigeria. Stay with us.
The Anambra State chapter of the All Progressives Congress has suspended its chairman, Chief Basil Ejidike. A stakeholder of the party, Okonkwo Okom, announced the suspension at a press conference in Awka, the Anambra State capital. Okom said Ejidike was suspended because he refused to convene a state congress of the party to tackle pressing and urgent matters, despite repeated demands to do so as stipulated by the party's constitution. He also said the state chapter of the APC, jointly convened by not less than 2/3 of the members of the State Executive Committee and not less than 2/3 of the 21 local government area chairmen of the APC, with the mandate of the 326 ward chairmen in the state, decided to suspend AGDK. The Gombe State chapter of the All Progressives Congress APC has denied reports alleging mass resignation of its wards executives in Yamal 2, Deba local government area of the state. Moses Kiari, the state APC publicity secretary, disclosed this when he addressed newsmen in Gombe. Kiari was reacting to a social media report indicating that over 80% of APC ward executives in Yamal 2, Deba local government area have resigned their positions in solidarity with Senator Danjuma Goje. He described the report as very dangerous and malicious. The Ondo State House of Assembly has suspended the chairman of Ifedore local government area of Ondo State, Alex Oladimeji, for alleged misappropriation of funds. The House, during the plenary session, sanctioned the chairman after a report submitted to the House by the Ad Hoc Committee on Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs found him guilty of the offence. Some councillors in Ifedore local government area were said to have earlier petitioned the Assembly, alleging that the embattled council chairman was involved in financial recklessness, misappropriation of funds, among other abuse of office. While submitting the committee report to the Assembly at the plenary, the chairman of the committee and Deputy Speaker of the House, Samuel Aderoboye, noted that the investigation by the committee during a visit to the local government revealed that the funds released to the council were not appropriately utilized for the project for which it was meant. He added that some of the projects, which the chairman claimed on paper to have been 80% completed, were discovered during the visit to be at barely 40% level.
Okay, let's go into the conversation now. But let me start with Professor Usman, for instance. Nigerians have been asking questions with regards to, one, the timing, two, the rationale, and three, the modalities and even the realities of this subsidy removal. Let me get your take.
Right. So what is subsidy? What triggered all of this? And is there really an oil subsidy? Because I remember, just like you alluded to, in 2015, 2019, this same president and his governors, some of his current governors, went on procession, right? Fighting against removal of subsidy. And he said, I remember clearly, who are we subsidizing? Who is subsidizing for who?
That's right.
That he wants somebody, an economist, a petroleum economist, to come and tell him, what are we subsidizing? He said it's all a scam. And indeed, it's been a scam. So my question to Mr. President, why did he allow the scam for the 6 going to 7 years of his tenure? Who have been benefiting from this so-called subsidy? Right? Nobody has told us over the 7 years. People have grown.
They were talking about a cabal in
No,
the industry.
They know who they are. People have grown fat on what they call this subsidy, while our people continue to suffer in penury. Number one. And you're going to remove it now. Why now? What will be the impact on the people? And these are the issues we need to address and talk about today. And I'll allow Mr.
Yes, Mr. Benga. Now, looking at the proponents and what they are saying of this subsidy removal, they base the argument on the fact that Nigeria is going through hard times. The economic decline is very massive, owing to the COVID-19 disruptions and, of course, the decline in oil revenue at some point and all of that. That Nigeria can no longer accommodate, a huge bill for subsidy. We're talking about 1.8 trillion naira, going by the template or what, the NNPC told Nigerians it has spent just this year alone. And some felt, Nigeria cannot continue in this trajectory. There is need for government to once and for all get rid of this thing called subsidy. so that it can free some money for development. What's your take on it?
First, just to let you know, I didn't decamp from PT. PT was deregistered.
Oh, okay.
And so I had to make a choice
Thank you
of a
very
new
much for that
party.
clarification.
So I didn't decamp.
That's right.
Thank you so much.
Right.
Well, I think the president has to be careful. And he is a patriot. I have absolute confidence in his honesty, his integrity. Now, but, that's different from policy choices that you make and people that you listen to. I think this is not a good time for a government that is winding up to take such a major decision. I want to believe that the president will not approve this policy. I want to believe that some technocrats in government, ministers, head of parastatals, are driving this debate. I don't think that in the final analysis that the president will assent to it.
Right.
That's the...
Okay, you talk about timing. We'll come back to that, because if you said it is not the right time, perhaps you mean it is imperative, but okay, we'll come back to that.
I don't think it's imperative.
Okay.
I think we will have time to examine it. If you want me to take on that question,
Well,
I'm happy to do so.
I'll come back to you on that. But let me take on Professor. Now, the logic, because that has been the concern by Nigerians. NMPC, the oil industry is saying that we're spending this huge amount of money on subsidy, 1.8 trillion naira. And then there is need to take off the subsidy, perhaps by the 1st of January next year. And then in its place, we'll be spending like 1.2 trillion naira to provide palliative. And this palliative in form of 5,000 naira each to 30 or 40 million Nigerians to cushion the impact. But the figures are not adding up. Some would say, how can you sacrifice 1.8 trillion naira for 2.2 trillion naira? Is there any logic?
There's voodoo. No, but fellow Nigerians, this is the honest truth. The honest truth is that the current subsidy is not sustainable. None. And all this came about recently based on the World Bank development update for Nigeria. And I took time to read it. Yeah. Its observation is over the last 2 years, 8 more million people, Nigerians have gotten into poverty. That Nigeria is essentially not benefiting from the rise in oil price in the international market. Not much revenue is coming in. Why? Because we get this money, we are spending the same money in subsidizing what we bring in. So they say Nigeria is truly not benefiting, as it should, because of this huge, unsustainable subsidy that we're having to bear. These are their observations. What are their recommendations? Their recommendations over the last 10 years, if you look at, over the last decade, if you look at the IMF and the World Bank has always recommended to Nigerian government to remove subsidy on fuel.
And actually, we're talking about electricity as well.
Good. So the reason is, if you look as an economist, I'm not one, but you look at the numbers, look at what NNPC is telling us, look at what Ministry of Finance is telling us. Essentially, Nigeria is broke. We're not getting where we are supposed to get in. We're operating a budget deficit. We are budgeting 100 naira, but we have only 10 naira. We have to go find the 90 naira that's budget deficit. So what are the recommendations? And they are recommendations for nations to take. And it's based on these recommendations, I saw the Minister of Finance bringing up these numbers. And they still have not sat down and decided what they need to do. Part of the recommendations, the first one is, of course, increase what they call sin tax. Increase tax on alcohol, increase tax on cigarette, sugary drinks, and levy electronic transfer money, and also remove fuel subsidy. Essentially, the reason is we are not benefiting The price of oil is going high, but Nigeria is not benefiting commensurately because we have a huge burden on this subsidy.
Right, talking about the imperialist recommendation, if I should put it that way. The IMF and the World Bank are, of course, agents of, Western imperialism, some would say. But then, looking at the realities, this is what they are telling us. Like Prof has said, severally they have recommended such measures, to cushion or rather to rejig the economy, as they say. But many times it has also failed because we haven't seen the impact in Nigeria. So why must we continue to take hook, line, and sinker some of these recommendations, not minding the current realities of our country as one of a developing country that is lacking in, so many things, the capacity to absorb what comes out of it and all of that?
Economics is a science of alternatives. And at any point in time, there are 1,001 policy choices to choose from. We have done enough listening to IMF for over 30 years on the value of the currency. Fertilizer subsidy was removed. You knew what happened to Nigerian agri system. And all sort of things that have been done. Nigeria became a completely deindustrialized country. This country was producing vaccines in the 70s for some other African countries. We produced nothing after listening to IMF and World Bank for 30 years. What are we talking about? The bill for what they call subsidy is about $4 billion. At current receipt of $78 per barrel today of Brent, you'll be looking at about receipt of about $40 billion. $4 billion is just 10% of that. They are shifting attention from more serious issues. The serious issue is that debt servicing is
gulping, substantial.
Is gulping almost 70 to 80% of the revenue.
And we're still borrowing.
And who benefits from those interests? They benefit. I thought the IMF and the World Bank should be talking about, after COVID-19, how do you get concessionary rates and relief?
Yeah, for especially
Nigeria,
for developing countries,
especially
economies.
For a country that your data has shown has produced 8 million more poor people. Rather, they would rather want those poor to pay more. What kind of logic is that? That does not show developmental projection. All right. So I believe it's absolutely diversionary. $4 billion in maybe a potential receipt of about $40 billion in revenue on current oil price over a period of 12 months. It's just 10% of the whole thing. Yeah. And what constitutes what this petroleum products services? Now, don't believe the propaganda of the IMF and the World Bank that these PMS are used by elites to drive big cars and all that. That's not true.
In other words,
Nigeria is surviving on self-generated power. Every hairdresser has a small...
Yeah, I was talking about the comparative analysis, earlier on. Yeah. Countries who have done this and get away with it, perhaps they have what the necessary, what is the basic things that are required: power, stability in supply. There is infrastructure and all of that.
Yeah, so in the case of Nigeria, the bulk of daily consumption of electricity products goes into power generation, and if you increase the price, it's going to have a huge impact on the energy cost. Now, we followed this for decades.
That's right.
There is no government since 1970s, when Gowon was in charge, up to today, that has not increased fuel price.
Well, okay. Perhaps to comply with the international oil prices, because we're not in isolation. We're talking about the global market, and certainly the prices would have to fluctuate. But then coming back to, the issues, Professor, some are wondering, does Nigeria even have business, talking about subsidy in the first place? Here we are with 4 refineries that are moribund somehow, and with a president, who came on the promise that he's going to revive these refineries, and in every year, I don't know, like yesterday, each year we'll try to build additional refineries. So the refineries are still comatose. We haven't seen any refinery added to the 4 we have. Otherwise, some say we don't even have business importing refined petroleum products. How are you looking at this?
Right. So I have friends who work in the NNPC who will tell you refining oil, refineries is not a profitable business for any.
Okay.
Right.
So why are we still keeping
this is so this is the truth. And what we do in Nigeria, government is everywhere doing everything but doing nothing. So unless private enterprises can take over refining oil, government cannot and will not be able to do it well. That's why maybe Dangote, with the help of the government, is coming up, and we need more of those to be able to do that. If we wait for government to rebuild refineries and bring oil, they will tell you it's not a profitable venture. Number one. Number two, so World Bank is recommending. These are recommendations, and they are not recommendations based on some empty thing. Yeah, they may be in Washington, D.C., but we get money, we borrow money from the outside world, right? And they have to protect their
interest, right?
Absolutely. You are over borrowing and you've been financially reckless. So and we have to be able
to submit to some of those terms.
Absolutely. So it's not about It's you see, the point is the honest truth. No, let me finish. It's not about. It's not. Look, I'm not an economist. I'm not. But look at the numbers. He's been talking about billions in petrol, billions in this. I just came back from home, Kazana. I just came back from Ruga in Kaba. All the money is here or in Lagos. It does not translate into the people. That's right. It doesn't. So we're just talking. Let me finish. So the World Bank's recommendation, I'm not an economist, but the reality, the president was talking about this before he got into government. They are now in government and they saw the mess. This subsidy is not sustainable, and Nigeria is broke. We cannot do it. Give you an example, 2022 budget and this World Bank. The 2022 budget, I'm a doctor, 2022 budget budgeted 3,000 naira per person per year for health, but budgeted 13,000 naira per person for fuel subsidy.
So you can see the contradiction.
Right, so we are not investing in human beings. We are investing in flyovers and roads. And the honest reality is that this subsidy, so-called subsidy, is not sustainable. And they know the truth. This is their recommendation. They are recommending.
Yeah, but what Mr. Benga is actually telling us is that, yes, okay, we know that, there's this fault line. We know for sure that, the subsidy is not sustainable. But for a government that is already presiding over an economy that is in the rate, so to speak, with inflation, high inflation, devaluation of the naira, the excruciating hardship, in the land and all of that, and then a government, that is also approaching a general election, a 2023 election. Should it contemplate, coming up with this policy, at this point in time?
Right. So I will tell you, one of the main recommendations, the price of oil is going up, but we are not seeing commensurate revenue into Nigerian coffers because of this subsidy. So guys, do something. One of the things they recommend is, remove subsidy on PMS. And I looked at their logic. I didn't see the logic in the logic. They are saying 40% of those 3% low-income people do not buy PMS. They say it's you and I that buys PMS, right? That's what they say.
That's not true.
That's what they say. No, that's what they say. So they are saying the government, I'm reading, they are saying the government is subsidizing essentially what you and I, the so-called elites, consume, which is not true. You look at the roads are applied by golf, by buses, by whatever, where the masses go. Yeah, the trucks are run by diesel, and that has already been removed. So the logic is different, is not domesticated to the Nigerian issue. This is what they recommend in other parts of the world.
Yeah.
In other parts of the world, they remove subsidy on PMS before removing subsidy on kerosene and diesel. But Nigeria, we did it backwards.
Yeah, that's right. Others have already been deregulated. The kerosene,
And diesel.
gas, and all of that have been cooking gas.
But
and
this
all
will
of
be
that,
a difficult one
so,
to do.
But then coming back, to the issues. Yes, they are talking about the imperatives. They can't look otherwise. They need money. You talk about the huge debts, servicing that we have to contend with, and all of that. But then recommendations by IMF and the World Bank, are they sacrosanct? Are they things that you must have to subject yourself to? What will happen if Nigeria decides not to?
The U.S. government is indebted more than 110% of its GDP. It doesn't listen to IMF
Why must we listen to them?
and World Bank. This is the most indebted country in the world.
That's right.
It's indebted to Chinese treasury holders and what have you.
That's right.
So, but it doesn't listen to IMF or World Bank. So it's your political choice. How much do you want to listen to them? What alternatives do you have if you don't listen to them? Because there are going to be consequences.
Yeah, for doing
if
that.
you are indebted to them. We've been in this situation before. This is where we were. Okay, in 1999, where Nigeria was heavily indebted, and we had to do some negotiations,
debt relief,
some and blah blah blah. And we are back to this situation again, unfortunately. Where IMF and World Bank will have to be breathing down our neck as to what
we should do, dictating.
To do, and and that's why I think that in an election year, we should leave this to the politician. I'm doing a risky thing here that most politicians and some of my colleagues will never do. You never get them to come to
your constituency.
They will never come here. Some people will never come here and tell you what their positions are. Everybody's playing safe. But we need to hear from political leaders. You want to govern us? How do you want to handle this matter? Now, the issue of oil pricing must be a strategic issue to be discussed as a strategic issue. It's not something you deal with
Perhaps
carelessly.
because of the centrality of it.
Because of the centrality of it
in the economy. That's right.
As I said, I fault the World Bank logic that it's just some elites that are consuming these products. Nigeria generates less than 10,000 megawatts of electricity when it should be generating and distributing 160,000 megawatts on comparative per capita basis with South Africa. That is a country of about 40 million, 50 million and generating 40,000 megawatts of electricity. The electricity that most people use, those who use at all, including the low-income earner for their work, the barber uses this PMS fueled generator.
To run the generator, that's right.
The tailor uses this PMS. Even the one that is grinding cassava, that is grinding a lubo, is using this PMS. So it's not all these 50-something million liters that have been put into cars and what have you.
And at the moment,
the energy costs, even for small-scale industry that they run on diesel, the energy cost is enormous because they cannot access power at the grid. Now, the PMS and diesel is playing a more strategic role in the Nigerian economy than just running cars and lorries.
even the prices of goods and services substantially rely on this, because even without the removal of subsidy as it is, we've seen because of other factors how prices of
So
goods and
if you
services
ask me,
have gone
it's a
up.
question of making your choices. What are your policy choices?
So what are the choices? That is the fundamental question,
Absolutely.
because we have to look at the options. Yes, there is no money, and this is what the IMF and World Bank are saying, and then we have a contemporary reality that we have to look at, as a country. What are the perhaps policy options? What can we look at differently?
Yeah, and you see, I honestly don't agree that the World Bank is saying you must do this, and you must do it. These are recommendations. This is one of 8 or 9 recommendations they gave the Nigerian government. And we all know, you and I know, this subsidy is not sustainable.
It has to go.
Beneficiaries of these subsidies are not the poor. They are the cabal.
So how do we
No, you-
rechannel?
Let me finish. Let me finish. Yeah, let me
So
finish.
justify that, not just to say that.
let me.
Because what
Yeah,
you're
let
actually
me.
saying is
Let
that
me
in a
finish.
way it benefits the ordinary people.
Right.
because of the small businesses. Right.
Okay. Who is importing this fuel? Who is we have data from the NNPC, those that say we brought this ship of refined oil and it is all false.
There is a gulf of
This,
distance
this,
even between, because
good.
looking at the consumption.
Yeah, let me.
At some point
yeah,
they were telling us
so
we're
it's full
consuming,
of, yeah.
we're importing 30
It's
million,
full of-
and then within 2-3 years it jacked up to almost
Yeah,
60
people
million.
have made money at the expense of the people. People have not.
Mr. Benga
What
would
the
have to
ordinary,
respond to
yeah,
that.
no, what the
When we
ordinary,
return
no,
from
what
the
the
break.
ordinary person has benefited not only from this subsidy but from petroleum alone. All in this country is not much to see compared to other nations. So it's a nation that we've not managed our resources well. What the World Bank recommended, and this is recommendation, it's up to you. This is one of 8 or 10 recommendations.
But we are indebted,
the recommendation,
just like Mr. Benga said,
so
because
then
we work hand in hand.
right.
looking
So
for-
and you cannot
for
compare
loans and all
yourself.
of that,
Yeah,
and
you
we'll continue
cannot
to do
compare.
that.
Yeah, you cannot compare yourself to America. It doesn't listen. America funds IMF and the World Bank. Just one airport in the United States makes more money than the whole of Nigeria every month. This is the truth,
But
right?
America is indebted over 100% of its GDP.
Good, but
Yeah,
this
we're
is
talking
what
about
it
that.
does.
Well, we're talking
right.
about debt.
No,
That's
this is
right.
yeah. Let me finish. So this is
okay.
this is what part of their recommendation, guys. You better try and remove this subsidy, but everybody knows removal of this subsidy will have deleterious effect, inflationary effect on your people. So how do you mitigate that? Their recommendation
Talking about
is
5,000 naira.
no. Their
In fact-
recommendation. This is their recommendation. Their recommendation is do an extensive, large, covering 25 to 50%. I don't work for IMF or World Bank, and I'm not here sitting and
to
vote for
defend
them.
them,
Right.
to project their interest.
I'm just telling Nigerians where the government got this from. 25 to covering 25 to 50% of your population, targeted, time bound, right?
Yeah.
They say cash
6 months.
transfer over time to mitigate that. This is their recommendation. So the federal
And how
government
does
has to
that
come.
even mitigate in the first place?
So
We're
the
talking about
federal
6
government,
months,
good,
1 year precisely.
Good. So the federal government has to come and tell us. And I saw the federal minister of finance talking about this. He's talking about palliatives. Fellow Nigerians, we have learned about NSAS palliatives.
Right, okay.
Let me finish.
Yeah,
Where did
that's
the
why time we take
palliatives
a
go?
break, yes.
Where did the palliatives go?
We'll talk about that. We need to review, some of the interventions in the past and what impacts have they made. And of course, look at the imperatives as well. We'll be back shortly. We have to take a break. In case you're just joining us, the program is Daily Politics. We're looking at the subsidy removal, debacle that has been generating conversations around Nigeria. And I've been interfacing with Mr. Benga Olawepo Hashim, the former presidential candidate of the People's Trust, a business, an economist as well, a policy analyst, chieftain of the APC, as well as Professor Usman Yusuf, who is the former executive secretary of the National Health Insurance Scheme, a professor of hematology and bone marrow transplantation, a policy analyst, one that has been consistent with the issues that affect the common people. We'll take a break. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation. Stay with us. thank you very much for staying with us. It's still Daily Politics coming to you on Trust TV. Before the break, Mr. Benga, Professor is actually looking at the figures and, of course, who benefit from what and how, what can be done to mitigate the impact. And now the finance ministry and the Nigerian government by extension is saying that to accommodate or to cushion the impact of this subsidy removal, they're coming up with a 5,000 naira palliatives. They call it transport palliatives or so to 40 million Nigerians. In the first place, we're talking about, conservatively, over 190 million people that were affected because, these are the people who are below perhaps the poverty line. And we're talking about accommodating only 30 or 40 million. And even at this, we don't have the template to reach out. We've talked about several interventions in the past, the trader money, the farmer money, the school feeding program, and so on and so forth. But there has been concerns that these monies are not getting to the real target. How do we reconcile these issues?
Well, I think money in the pocket of the people through products that they get will be better managed by them than monies that will be administered by civil servants that may not get there. If there are issues of lack of transparency in the subsidy management in the petroleum sector, the same people that are asking that we should remove the subsidy should give us explanation as to how they have managed those subsidy regime. They are the managers.
Yeah, there was at some point a SURP subsidy
in the past,
empowerment program or so.
In the past, 6 years. But as I said, one of my problems with people who call themselves technocrats when they are advising politicians and governments is that most of the time they are not accountable for policies they recommend.
Yeah, immune.
Should there be any massive social upheaval as a result of full swap removal and increase in prices of petroleum products, some of these people recommending these things will find appointment with the next government. This is the politicians who are here now that will take responsibility for what they have done. They are not going to take any responsibility. They are anonymous. You will even be surprised some of them will become ministers in the next government, whosoever constitute that government. And we've gone through this part before. In 1988, under Babangida in April, the marginal increase in oil prices by just 2.5 kobo, this country never got out of it for about 4 months.
Can imagine.
There was protracted strike. And you could not politicize the strike because it started from Kano. And then it went to Plateau.
It has the wider spread.
Namoda. Even before it started in other regions. So you cannot say, some section of the country. And the president was from the north. All his goodwill in the north evaporated immediately he did that. Shonekan's government did not even survive it. That government was toppled on account of the removal of that subsidy. These were military governments or military-backed government to tell you how contentious these issues are. So I believe that the people who are speaking about these things, they don't have any kind of accountability for the consequences of what they are recommending. And that's why I believe that the president is a wise man. He's not going to listen to them. You understand what this means.
That is the expectations now. But so many things have happened, and Nigerians think anything can go, for instance. Talking about whether President Muhammadu Buhari will heed to the call or not. And perhaps it is about his future. It is about his posterity. It's about his political career. It is about a legacy. Do you think, going by some of these observations and, of course, concerns, the president would listen to Nigerians and do the needful? Because some would say he has nothing to lose. Perhaps he's not seeking for election in 2023. And he wouldn't have liked, to also keep a baggage for himself that will continue. Do you see him reasoning along these lines?
Yeah, the president doesn't listen to anybody. So perish that thought. Why are we here? Which of these are politicians? Our politicians are removed, detached from the realities of our people. Detached. So for anybody to say, oh, it's technocrats, politicians, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Let me finish.
Okay.
Our politicians are detached from the realities of the sufferings of our people. That's why they stay in Abuja and keep making policies. How many ministers that represent their state in the president's cabinet go back home and spend weekends with their people to see what their people are going through? How many? How many members of the House of Reps or senators go back home and spend a weekend with their people? They are here in Abuja. So the honest reality is that the politicians are detached from the sufferings of our people. So we sit down in Abuja and give consultants, and they come up with big policies and all that are completely detached from the realities of our people. Let me finish.
Okay.
You go to Katsina, that's where I come from. Many villages, you take out 1,000 naira and stand in the town square. Nobody there can give you change. Because nobody has
Why?
change. Because people are poor. This is the level of poverty. Oh, even in the so-called Lagos and all that. Let me finish. Even in the so-called rich Lagos, we saw flooding in Ajegunle. We saw kids in Makoko in the river. Politicians are detached from sufferings and realities of our people. End of story. We sit down in state capitals and make policies. We do not know the realities of our people. I know here. And I hear this policy that, in 10 years, we will have gotten 100 million people out of poverty. When in 6 years, how many people have been gotten out of poverty? Yeah. More people are going into poverty, and many more will go if we do not do this the right way.
We are talking about the politicians, the policymakers, but even those that are watching on the sidelines are also commenting. Take, for instance, the former CBN governor, and talking about Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, just recently also mentioned that. In fact, he was suggesting that the National Assembly should impeach the president for not implementing the subsidy removal. He was also, saying that Nigeria as a nation should not, it is the populism that we're talking about, the populist government we intend to run. It's not the right way to go. We have to look at a state, that is productive, that is not, providing the feeding bottle, but then providing an enabling environment. Do you think, it is beyond the policymakers, even the thinking among the economists and so on, also give back to this?
Yeah. So it's okay to be an armchair economist in Abuja and not know what's happening to our people in Bazari, Kauranamoda, or Kitupupa, or Kiwi. Right? The facts are there, but you should humanize whatever you do. The same governor, the same Emir Sanusi, there was a clip of him as an emir shedding tears. Why? Because a lady brought her child in the back after going to hospital. And every emir, every cleric, they have a long queue of people coming, seeking for help. He was waiting as he saw people, and then all of a sudden he had screams. He asked why, what happened? The baby she was carrying, she'd been to hospital, they gave her a prescription, she had no money, she came to the emir, and they always do that. The baby she was carrying, waiting in line to see the emir, passed away on her back. While waiting to see. What was she looking for? Money less than 1,000 naira. She died. The baby died. So this is the realities of people that every emir, every cleric that live with the people, not the politicians that don't live with the people, or us, the elite. They see the realities of our people, and our policies are not are not taking cognizance of the sufferings of our people. End of
But
story.
the same people are postulating for this.
So
Let me-
back to where we are.
Yes, and then before that,
Yeah.
let's also digest, one of the, the issues raised by the governor of Kaduna State, who happened to speak, perhaps on behalf of the governors. He said this issue of subsidy has to go, has to end, because if the government did not do this at this point in time, by next year, governors cannot even pay salaries. How are you, looking at some of this? The situation we find ourselves, and because they're trying to use this to show that it is something that must be done now.
Well, my answer to that is that if fuel prices go up, cost of living goes up, then labor will ask for increase in wages. And whatever they think they are going to benefit from the Federation account as a result of removal of subsidies, they will have to pay in terms of probably a double minimum wage.
What about even the first one that is being
They have
is
not
yet to be implemented by
it's
some
yet to
states?
be implemented, and you are going to have endless industrial actions and what have you consequent upon that. Now, as I said, the choice is yours as a government, what you want to do in the interim. I believe that there are too much divisive issues burden this country in terms of insecurity that we're trying to deal with. Some other social crises, kidnapping. We shouldn't
Even
inflame.
economic, yeah.
We should not inflame the polity any further by adding fuel to a raging inferno. This, to me, is absolutely not the best time. I want to see a rigorous debate of political leaders coming up to speak to these issues. And enough of people dodging and sneaking into power. And then at the end
People
of
have
the
to
day,
take responsibility.
But
They have
people
to come
take-
forward and
People have
explain.
to take responsibility. Okay, Sanusi Lamido El-Rufai, I've had them, but I have a different view
Right.
from what they are talking about.
Right.
You understand? Whether IMF or World Bank recommended it or not. I did international finance and international economics as part of my sequences at master's level, and I was the best in my class in the UK. And most of the people who have criticized some of these policies of the IMF are prize winners like Stiglitz. The most brilliant economists who have won prizes are not on the same terms with these people. Now, but we have international civil servants who have no other job doing than just pushing this thing all over the world. You understand, who are technocrats. Most of them are not prize winners. They have never won any prize, whether in their class or whatever. So, regardless of any appointment anybody has been given, does not confer any brilliance on you. You have to show us the logic
reasons.
of your argument. You have to show me why a $4 billion bill is more important than, perhaps about $30 billion in debt servicing in the economic mix, and why we have to throw our country into such an inferno because we want to save a $4 billion bill. When oil prices goes down, the oil subsidy price, quote and unquote, the ticket will probably become $2.5 billion to a revenue of about $25 billion. And then the argument then will be, now that we don't have enough revenue, you are going to devalue. And once you devalue,
Again,
the price of oil goes up. So this is a conundrum so we need a strategic discussion, not a piecemeal
suggestions.
suggestion, as I have seen from the finance minister of we need a holistic debate about the management of the economy, not just speaking on devaluation of currency and the oil subsidy. For the past 32 years, it's been a vicious circle of discourse about the value of the currency and the price of petroleum products.
So we must make it a
We
national
cannot
priority.
manage the economy based on these two items.
So we must
have
open up the
a
discussion.
serious discussion
We must open up the discussion
on the management of
have-
the economy.
Yeah.
You need to invite Sanusi Lamido to come and clarify why he's saying what he has said.
Yes,
you need to bring El Rufai to your program to come and tell us why he thinks that's. And if you
That's the
invite
best way
me
to go.
on the same table with them, I'm happy to come and discuss it.
Great.
They need to tell us how we're going to manage these things.
Right.
They need to tell us the impact on industrialization, on manufacturing. You understand? And the social consequences of all these things.
Right.
And how do we manage it?
Better how we can mitigate it. Okay, Professor, coming back to you. Yeah, it appears, even though the National Assembly said, I think the only thing I heard from them was the fact that even this 2.2 trillion naira that we are proposing for the palliatives is not included in the 2021 budget, for instance. Besides that, we haven't had the National Assembly coming out to take a position. Here are representatives of the people who ought to, at this point in time, come out, irrespective of party affiliation or what have you, to apply the necessary brakes, so that the ordinary people are not shortchanged. What role do you think they can play in this conundrum?
A lot, but they are missing in action. They have been for a while. They honestly have been for a while. That one of the biggest problems in this country, and we know it, is corruption. End of story. You can do all the palliatives we want. No money will go to the poor man where it needs to be. And the president said it. We do not kill corruption, corruption will kill us. And it's killing us. Corruption was the basis of this subsidy. And corruption was the basis for palliatives during NSAS. Corruption will be the basis will eat up whatever palliatives you give next. Are we going to deceive ourselves? I'm 61. We need to speak for our people. We see the sufferings of our people. Let's be honest about this. So we can sit down and talk all the economics we want. We go back home, we see the realities, the sufferings of our people. This is the honest truth. All this, not only corruption, bad governance. Yeah, Governor El Rufai was one of those fighting against removal of the subsidy. And he has seen it now, this is the reality. But now I'm asking, the big question I'm asking, why is this government waiting till the evening hours of its time to do this and run away? If we are going to remove subsidy, they will remove it during the first one because they probably will not be re-elected. But after the re-election, the second time, that's the right time to do what you want to do. And this is what people
concerned about posterity.
Let me tell you, this is the cynical. If the federal government has not had this is the cynical view that people have of this 5,000 naira that they are talking about. Is that 2022? You're going to start giving 5,000 naira to bribe people to vote for you. This is the cynical
That's
thing.
a political
No,
entity.
let me, it's very important. It's not going to, who are they going to give 50 million to? 40 million Nigerians? How are you going to, is my old uncle in Aruga going to be included? The money will be out here in Abuja or Lagos or Benin or Port Harcourt. And after 6 months or 5,000 every month, what's next? The economy will not magically improve. Federal government, this is a national security imperative to manage this properly. Nigeria is at a crossroad. We have poverty. We have insecurity. Our people are not going to the farm. And you're going to remove this and increase inflation. Food prices is going up. This federal government,
it will even go up more.
The federal and state government need to reconnect with the people and govern with the milk of kindness.
Right, Mr. Benga, let me get your last line. Dealing with the realities, just like Professor said, it's enough of the English, the Turanchi as they put it. How do we face the realities?
The reality is that this low oil price is the only thing that gets to Nigerians. They get nothing. They don't get free health. They don't get education. They get nothing.
No power.
They get nothing. So I understand all the grammar of the
postulators.
But when they have to pay double to put in that their I pass my neighbor generator and put fuel into it to be able to run their barbering salon, they know something serious has happened. And whether they are Hausa, Yoruba, or Igbo, at that time they are going to speak with one voice.
Irrespective.
So don't let us compound situation. Let's manage it. This is an election year. We need a strategic debate on the management of the national economy.
That's right.
Including all the various indices of the economy, not just one or two things.
Thank you very much.
One last one.
Okay, we're running out of time.
Reduction of the cost of governance.
Okay. Reduction in the
Cost of governance.
Very critical. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for the perspectives on this platform this afternoon. Thank you very much, Mr. Benga Olaupo Hashim. Thank you very much, Professor Usman Yusuf, for your insights on this very topical national issue. On their behalf, this is where we come to the end of Daily Politics. My name is Shafiu Suleiman. I do hope you join us next when we come up with another set of personalities and compelling topics. Stay with us. We'll be back then. Thank you very much for staying with us.